Welcome to today's art adventure here at the Daura Museum of Art at the University of Lynchburg. Today's activity is inspired by this exhibition, Forced to Flee, on loan from the Studio Art Quilt Associates. Let's take a look at this piece in the show. It's called Wanted, a Home, and it was created by Diane Westphaser in 2018. Of her quilt, the artist says, the United Nations has reported that the world is experiencing the greatest number of displaced people in our history. Over 65 million people were displaced by conflict and persecution at the end of 2016. Over 22 million people are currently classified as refugees, and more than half of those are children. This quilt, with its improvisational faces floating in a sea of blues, is a reminder of this humanitarian crisis. Throughout history, people have taken perilous voyages over rough seas seeking asylum. Currently, people are crossing the Rio Grande River and the Mediterranean Sea, once again facing life-threatening hazards in search of a home. I'm Laura, and I'm excited to read a story with you today called What is a Refugee? By Elise Gravel. A refugee is a person, just like you and me. Refugees had to flee their country because they were in danger. Some of them had to flee because their country was at war. Some had to leave because powerful people didn't like what they thought or said and wanted to hurt them. And her sign says everybody is created equal. Others had to leave because people didn't accept their religion or hated them because they were different. Most refugees would have preferred to stay in their country with their friends and family. But it was too dangerous. Also, often their homes were destroyed and they didn't have anything left. Refugees had to find another country to live in, and that's not easy. There are countries that don't want to welcome more refugees. And while they were waiting for a new country to welcome them, many refugees had to stay in camps where life was hard. Refugees were lucky if they could find a country where they could live a normal life and do normal things, like go to school and make friends, work, or live in peace and safety. Just like you and me. Included in your craft kit are some paper scraps, some feathers and pipe cleaners, bells, sequins, some jewel pieces, Google eyes and assorted buttons, and pom-poms. You also have 2 lengths of yarn, a plastic needle, and a glue stick, as well as 4 foam squares that are hole punched for your quilt. What is not included that you might want to grab are some scissors, any writing utensils, and anything else that you'd like to use in your project. Today's activity is Quilting Home. So first, you'll need to pull out the 4 foam squares in your kit. When I look at my instructions, they tell me to take my 4 foam quilt squares and arrange them into one big square with the holes forming a plus in the middle. You're going to want to take your needle and one of your pieces of yarn and then thread it. So the thread goes through the hole in your needle. You might need to get some help from an adult with this. But once it's through, first we're going to start at one end. I'm going to go up and then down on the other side. Once it's there, you're going to unthread the needle and line it up so that the ends of your string are matched up. Now you need to thread the needle again, but this time you're going to thread both ends into the needle. Once it's threaded through, you're going to go through the next hole, coming up all the way, and then go across to your other square. And then you're going to repeat that all the way up. Once you've gotten to the end of your first two squares, you're just going to continue going up the next two. Once you reach the end of your first row, you go all the way to the back. You're going to flip it over and make a knot. Do a knot around your finger, or you can use the needle. This might be another spot that your adult can help you with. Okay, so there is our first row, and now we're going to do the exact same thing on your other row. So the first question is, what does home feel like? So if I'm thinking about my home and how that feels, I'd probably say that it feels soft and cozy, like my favorite blankets, all snuggled up on the couch with my super soft dog. So I'm going to find some nice soft things in my materials to represent that. And I think since that's the first question for me, I'm going to put it in my first square. And I think I'll add some more soft things. And I'll add some of these too. Okay, and then my next question is, what does home smell like? Well, for me, home smells like flowers and the horses that live outside. So I think I will find some flowery sequins and maybe the stem and the petals I'll use for this. I think I'll use some of my paper scraps as well. Now, what does home sound like? Well, for me, home sounds like listening to my favorite song. So let's see, I'll grab some of these to make some music notes. And some of my paper over here makes cool sounds when I touch it. Ooh, I like that one. I'm gonna use these two. And my home also, when I think of home, I think of hearing my dog's jingly collar as he runs around the house. So I think I'll grab some of these bells to use for that. Now, what does home taste like? When I think of home, I think of tasting fresh baked bread straight out of the oven. So I think I will use some bread colored objects to make my bread. Let's see, what other colors are bread? Kind of a creamy color, right? And maybe some yellow for the butter. All right, so I finished putting my quilt together, so let's take a look. In my first square, I thought about what home feels like to me. So I have my couch and my fluffy pillows and cozy blankets and my super soft fluffy dog. In my second square, I have what home smells like to me. So I've got my flowers on the left here, and I have the horse to show what it smells like when I walk outside by the barn. And then in my next square, I have what home sounds like, which to me is listening to my favorite song. So I have the music note over here, and I think stars and squiggles represent all the fun sounds of my favorite song. And then I also have these jingle bells, which remind me of how it sounds to hear my dog and his jingly collar running around the house. In my last square, I thought about what home tastes like. And so I've got my big loaf of fresh baked bread here, and it's hot out of the oven, so these represent that steaming goodness. And then I've got a slice of bread there with a nice pat of butter. When you're done making your quilt, share it with someone that you love. Tell them about why you decorated it the way that you did. And then here at the Daura Museum of Art, we would also love to see your quilt. So ask an adult to help you share it with us. You can share it at Instagram at Daura Museum, on Facebook at Daura Museum U of L, or by email with dauramuseum@lynchburg.edu. Thanks for joining us today.